Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Propagandacast straight from the Propaganda Ministry with me, Imperial Dane. And today we have for you a 2 versus 2 on Wolfheze, as I did sort of blunder it out. I would be doing one, so here you go, a 2 versus 2 on Wolfheze. Wolfheze being a small area outside of Arnhem and was one of the areas to be first attacked by the airborne during Operation Market Garden, but it ran straight into a Kampfgruppe which was operating in the area. So let's have a look at who shall be opposing each other in the northern part. We do have 2 British commanders, so this will be a sort of historical fight, but none of those will actually be airborne forces as they can't really be replicated at the moment. But nonetheless, we could just imagine that somehow the Irish armored guards have somehow managed to sneak in there. Yes, that's it. But Nsxmugen, dashing captain and led on by the Major Donotsurrender, which is much better than his other friend Major Do Surrender. But that's another tale of woe and misery for the British. But Major Do Not Surrender and Captain Nsxmugen leading the 30 armored Irish guards, and who shall be opposing him? Major Jabarel of Kampfgruppe Jabarel, and he who shall not be named because he has a really silly name. So then, Wolfheze being a slightly interesting map in some points, again some others don't really like it. It's a rather open map. In some parts you have wide open spaces, but at the same time you have these 2 spots which rather dominate the central map, and usually leads to someone, for example the British, setting up near these fuel points, getting some mortar pits, and then generally being a nuisance because you can't really get to them very easily, in particular when you do have mortar pits blasting away. So that is a bit of a problem for some, since well, these 2 railway buildings do cover most of the fuel on this map. There also being a few points right here at the corners, but that's not really as much as, for example, all of this fuel right in the center. So then let's get on with it, shall we? So we'll of course be seeing 2 reconnaissance sections, and I do believe I haven't shown a 2 British start with the Allies. Usually you see a British or an American or 2 Americans, but there you go, 2 British. Certainly can be a tough nut to crack, can also be an easy nut to crack. It rather depends on their level of cooperation and skill, and of course also depends on the skill of the Wehrmacht players. Of course, in these cases the Wehrmacht players will need to be quite aggressive and really press on and do their best in their efforts to crack the British. So we'll have to see how that goes, but certainly looks like the one Wehrmacht commander is building his Wehrmacht quarters right in the area of the other commander's base, while Major Jabarel is marching out as many pioneers as he can as possible, which is certainly not unorthodox. It certainly means you get a lot more power to seize territory, but at the same time he's limiting his combat capabilities against the British forces as well, which can certainly come to bite him in the arse. Pioneers charging in, and there we go, already streaming towards the central fuel points, and we're already seeing 1 headquarters command truck trundling through like a lumbering beast, blasting through sandbag walls and setting up. And we're seeing also a Bren carrier being summoned swiftly to sort of guard this central area. Seeing a heavy machine gun right on the field, but it's not probably going to be the best thing to deal with this Bren carrier, in particular and caught out in the open. What do you ask is better against Bren carriers? Bikes or Schwimmwagens? They tend to do the trick and can also be repaired, so that also helps them for sure. Bren carrier just charging in, heedless of any danger, but running straight into another machine gun emplacement. This could easily end up very badly for the Major's Bren carrier, and there we go. In fact, looks like it might be lost. Certainly not a good start there. In fact, out of control. Across the road and over the railway head, and blasting apart, forcing the reconnaissance section, supporting it to retreat as well. Pioneers taking on this reconnaissance section, not looking too good for... I'm not entirely sure who's it looking good for the Pioneers, also taking losses, but so are the reconnaissance troops. But looks like they are finally getting overmanned by all of these Pioneers, although 1 Pioneer team does go down. Another Pioneer team is lost, and the reconnaissance section barely makes out there as a motorcycle from the other one marches in, driving across in its Sundab motorcycle with the small sidecar, and coming in a bit too late as these 2 fuel points are now in British hands, giving the British certainly a bit more fuel than currently the Wehrmacht itself can muster. but they are swift to try and seize all the other fuel points in the process. Still no Wehrmacht quarters from Jabarel, and looks like the other one shall be doing most of the work so far. Bike and heavy machine gun setting up right here. We are seeing a Vickers machine gun emplacement quickly being set up, but a bike is setting up alongside a machine gun, which might certainly make that a much more dangerous effort. There we go, cancelling, but catching the reconnaissance troops right out in the open. Mortar pit though going down for Nsxmugen, of course using this to cover this area. A bit to be expected, but certainly not a bad idea, but the bike is not fast enough to discover this. In fact, it ends up rather exposed, and now the mortar pit will probably begin bombarding the machine gun, and at the same time we are seeing a bunker being laid down here, hoping to cover this point and keep it out of British hands. Certainly are a lot of defensive works, and a Vickers machine gun emplacement being laid down here, though I do believe they can't fire through trucks, so that's a bit curious, but there you go. Of course I can be wrong, there are some things that can be a bit blurry with. We are also seeing a sniper, so awfully support from the subordinate commander of the Kampfgruppe, and infantry section reporting victory point seized for the King George, of course. Donotsurrender moving in his reconnaissance section to support. Bunker getting the heavy machine gun, and of course for those wondering how to spot this at a glance, well, besides the fact that it's going to be shooting at your troops, there's these bits of netting and whatnot right at the front of it, which usually also indicates it from the top. A regular bunker will have absolutely nothing there and will just be raw concrete, so good tip for remembering. Pioneers moving in with a flamethrower, but they are awfully exposed, standing right in front of all these chaps with no cover at all. But looks like they will be burning out the troops out of the railway station. In fact, there we go. And now moving in for the kill on that mortar pit. Reconnaissance section marching in towards from the east. Pioneers moving towards the northeastern points as well. Not bad job. In fact, but these pioneers will have to get out of there. Oh dear, Pioneer team is lost now. Sniper also on the retreat, not wanting to get sniped by the reconnaissance section, and Bike desperately trying to get out of there. And I do believe we are seeing mortar fire trying to hit upon this bunker, I think. Still nothing here from Jabarel's base. In fact, nothing at all. We are also seeing a field support truck out from Nsxmugen. Nothing similar from the Major though. Another Vickers machine gun emplacement, a bit awfully defensive though, I feel, from the Major. Of course he is securing this area, but at the same time, if the Wehrmacht commanders would just put on a bit more pressure, they could actually crack this from perhaps this angle, which is in fact completely undefended, and certainly Jabarel has the right idea and continue hitting there. But at the same time he only has Pioneers to do it, which is certainly, in my point of view, quite the flaw. And now looks like these Pioneers are ending up in quite a bit of trouble, as a lieutenant with a infantry section do slaughter them, assassinate them, and other nasty verbs. And looks like we have a bit of a lull in the fighting as things are settling down in Wolfheze a bit. Forces gearing up a bit, and I do believe this is one of the few maps where, yes indeed, I do believe the night time is coming. And the sun is slowly setting and things will turn to night. There are certainly some maps where this effect actually happens, and I do believe Wolfheze is one of the few. And now bunker coming under straight fire from the mortar fire. This Pioneer team will want to get out there before they end up becoming casualties as well. And we are seeing a creek barracks up from the subordinate. Still nothing from Jabarel. In fact, now his Pioneers are just standing around having a pitcher of beer or something. It looks like another attempt at a bunker was made. We're also seeing an observation post on this high munitions point. So we might be seeing, I don't know, some sort of built-into terror perhaps? Firestorm and V1 rockets, I can't say. Certainly a bit curious. Lots of snipers from the other one. It looks like this bunker will be stopped right in its tracks as a large infantry force is moving in. But it is finished, and Pioneers are quick to seize positions up. And snipers, though awfully close to the reconnaissance sections, might get counter-sniped themselves. One Pioneer is down. Two infantry section members quickly sniped, forcing the rest into a full retreat. And we're finally seeing a building. Jabarel having opted straight for the Sturm Armory, having used all of his might and speed to actually get to it. And we're also seeing a Stuart light tank out. So certainly about time something like that. And the creek barracks was arrived since This Stuart light tank will certainly make things very, very painful for the two Wehrmacht commanders of the Kampfgruppe, since they currently won't have much else to actually hold against the line. And we do have... no, we don't even have a pack, actually. We do have a mortar, but no pack at all. This Stuart could, in fact, wreak a lot of havoc if it's so desired to do so, but it seems rather content and just blasting away at this bunker at the moment. So that's certainly going to be a bit of respite for the Kampfgruppe. Nothing at all coming out from this. Oh wait, there we go. Still a bit interesting what's going to be happening here. Stuart just seems content at dealing with these bunkers. British forces are recuperating here and there. A very nice target for, say, a Nebelwerfer, and there we go. In fact, a Nebelwerfer, a very good tool in dealing with entrenched British positions. Fire to deal with those chaps standing around, and of course just good at dealing out with any buildings nearby as well. And there we go, the howling of the Nebelwerfers. Mortar rounds also hitting as well, but we are seeing a casualty clearing from the station from the Major. Very good in trying to minimize the attrition rate. But looks like this recon section is taking quite a lot of fire, being awfully exposed. People going down to fire, rockets and mortars. Certainly not looking happy for them. And the casualty clearing station slowly burning up. Certainly not going to be a very happy situation for those wounded inside. And mortar rounds continue to hit, but a reconnaissance infantry section is recuperated, but is immediately under fire again. And we do have the Pak 38 50mm anti-tank gun on the field, and bunkers have been cleared up, opening the way for British infantry to march forwards and seize the eastern areas. Again, I can't help but feel if the Wehrmacht commanders had a bit more infantry and a bit more force, they might have been able to do a bit more pressure on the British, and that's rather what they're lacking now. Pressure. If you're seeing a lot of British, you want to put a lot of pressure on. While two Nebelwerfers are good, they can't really apply any direct pressure, and as you can certainly see, there are large British forces marauding in the east. And looks like the casualty clearing station is gone. And British positions are continuing to be exposed to rocket artillery. We shall have to see how this continues. And more artists, the Sturm Armory, Grenadiers and snipers, and a pioneer team with flamethrowers. So we are finally seeing actual infantry from the Wehrmacht Kampfgruppe. But oh dear, Stuart is on the spot and will be ready to open fire. No doctrine as of yet from the captain. And let's go have a look at the Major, who has no doctrine either. A few infantry teams, some with rifle grenades, other sections, mostly a lot of machine gun emplacements, and a lieutenant. But we're also seeing a field support truck now, who is getting a sapper team. And Stuart clearing up the situation, holding back those grenadiers who are in fact suppressed. But further Nebelwerfer rockets blasting everything. Not looking too good, and this machine gun emplacement is on fire and will probably soon be gone. And we're seeing a firestorm raining in on these British positions, apparently somehow sneaking in some sort of forward scouts. Not a bad job. And there we go, the pioneers having acted as that, clearing out the casualty clearing station there, and in fact doing quite a bit of damage to the British forces. Not a bad job. And we are seeing a Sturk 4 providing some more mobile anti-tank assets, and of course also something to actually deal with infantry as well. Sturk 4 assault gun, pride of the fatherland, and a nuisance to those Brits. And we are seeing a Bren gun section up, but it's certainly looking a bit in trouble against the Sturk 4. In fact, one is just crushed under the treads. Snipers taking out two furthermore. But we are still not seeing a single Kampfgruppe center up for either of those. That could actually do quite a lot. For example, that Sturk 4 with a veterancy 2 would be harder to kill, and of course have that MG42 on top.